It's Friday, September 13th, and I'm your host, Paula Hersey. On today's show, we celebrate recreation and the youth in our community. Now for a look at municipal and legislative notes. From field hockey to mountain biking, science and engineering, and babysitting skills, even building a Bevan skiff rowboat, there is something for everyone at Barnstable Recreation. Fall, after school, and weekend programs are still accepting registrations, and it couldn't be easier. Head to www.townofbarnstable.us/recreation and you'll find the brochure of fun and links to register. You can also register in person at the Hyannis Youth and Community Center. Walk-in registration hours are Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. How time flies when you're having fun. This week marks the 10th anniversary for the Hyannis Youth and Community Center. Lynn Poyant, the Director of Community Services, joins us in studio to take a look back at the HYCC project and the reasons for the facility. It's all about the kids. Happy anniversary! The Hyannis Youth and Community Center is going to be 10 years old on September 14th. Big party planned. With me today, Director of Community Services, Lynn Poyant. We're going to talk about the history of this really storied building and then some of the milestones over the last 10 years. So let's start off with the Community Services Department. The HYCC is under your purview, and
right.
I understand it might have been your first project?
It was 2 o'clock in the afternoon on my first day on the job. The town manager at the time, John Klim, came out of his office. My desk happened to be right outside of his office. He said, you know that Youth and Community Center everybody's talking about? Well, that falls under your department. So we want to make sure that that happens, and we'd like to get it up and running as quickly as possible. So let's see what you can do. And that was November of 2005. The town had the foresight to hire an owner's project manager for DPW around the same time. And so there were a number of things that had to happen, because anytime a project talking about 2 sheets of ice had been discussed in the town of Barnstable, it had always been a private venture. It hadn't been a public venture. And when the private ventures kind of didn't pan out, they came to the town and asked if whether or not there was a way for us to make it happen. With our hockey teams and everything else, there was a desire, and Barnstable Youth Hockey Association was a really big player at the time. But you know, with high school, Division I, Division II, those kinds of things, you wanted to make sure that you had the appropriate facility. The Kennedy rink that we had was really the only open air rink on the entire Cape. You had Gallo, Tony Kent, Charles Moore, they were all enclosed facilities. So it made sense that the largest town had a facility that was something that we could really talk about. So the town hired a consulting firm to do a feasibility study for the project. It was Charles Johnson out of, I believe, Chicago, Illinois. And they came down for numerous meetings to discuss, get input from the community to find out what it was that people wanted. At the time, the YMCA was going through a capital campaign, and you know, the first conversations were people wanted a pool, they wanted all these things, but we had to be realistic about what the facility could be and couldn't be. It involved the assemblage of parcels, because there had been some homes on corner projects. Where the center ice of the former Kennedy rink is actually demarked in the parking lot at the new facility, so that people can actually stand on a circle that says center ice for the Kennedy rink.
Oh, I didn't even know that. That's cool.
Yeah. So there was a lot of input. We worked with the Youth Commission. The Youth Commission passed out a survey during homeroom so that the students could have their input, and it was really fascinating because originally the students wanted the youth center part to be down below. And then when the more they talked about it, it's like, no, we want it up, we want windows, we want to see who's coming in and out of the building. So there were a number of components that came to the table. And we wound up having the groundbreaking a little bit later than what was originally hoped, but it happened on January 18th, 2008. And the project was actually not supposed to be completed until January of 2010, but we were able to open the doors in September of 2009.
So let's talk a little bit about, Barnstable is the largest town on the Cape. We have a lot of youth in this town.
We do.
And a lot of youth concentrated within that radius of the youth center. What's some of the impacts that were thought of that bringing youth together into a facility, regardless of playing hockey, because not everybody plays hockey,
Right.
but this really is, it's got all sorts of different types of things that not just youth, but everybody can participate.
Right, and thank you for the question, because hockey was one element, but in our conversations with the community, the whole youth bandwidth we wanted to bring into consideration. At the time, within a 1 mile radius, walking radius of the facility, there were 3,000 children, school-aged children, and the thought was, transportation's always been an issue, and when you're talking about that number of youth, it just made perfect sense for it to be located in Hyannis and not into one of the other villages within the town. The whole thing with the gymnasium, making sure that there was open gym time, making sure that there was a computer room, because a lot of people have maybe access to computers, but some of the people don't have the internet at home, and having a facility where they would be able to access the internet for homework and other things was really important. The original plan had included a full pro shop. So right now the pro shop is half the size of what the original plan was, but that's because community members went to the town manager and said, we need a space that we can call the multicultural resource room, and make sure that the people of every background feels welcome within the facility. And by having it right up front, it's a greeting place, and it's now recently changed its some of its use. I mean, it still has the multicultural use, but it has the Youth Commission that meets there, but it's now the Barnstable Public Schools Family Engagement Center, which you recently did a piece on, and that has been a tremendous benefit to it's provided a benefit because it's one-stop shopping for the parents, but because it's multilingual, they're actually showing off the facility so that people who might not have been able to or haven't known about the facility feel welcome, and then they've come back. There was actually a father and son who had registered for school, and then they came back later to play basketball for open gym, which is really a really great activity.
And the evolution of it. So one of the stories that when we were talking earlier about the track that came up over the gym, why did that? It's raised, so it's interesting. It's a great story.
Yeah. So when we were doing all the feasibility studies and everything else, we had a lot of public meetings, and there were mothers that were saying that they spend so much time in the freezing rinks that they would really like to have a walking track so that they would have some place to go, and that they weren't having to sit and being so cold, because even though it's indoors, it's ice.
Right.
So there's that element, and that was a great addition. And we find that there's a lot of people that have been making use of that for. We have a number of doctor's offices and rehab places that will bring people who are recovering from strokes and things like that. We have walking programs that the Cape Cod Municipal Health Group have done. We have free yoga in the gymnasium that's sponsored by Cape Cod Healthcare. We have, there's a lot of family and community-oriented activities. One of the things that we couldn't do in the old Kennedy Rink was anything for toddlers, and so we have Miss Laurie's Kids Club, and it's really fun to see the kids doing exercises, but that's not a program that we couldn't have participated with in the past. So it's from birth to
99.
To 99.
Or 101 or 2 or 6, and as some of our seniors are proving, longevity is the Barnstable way.
Right, and the Barnstable Adult Community Center has programs that they've offered. They've done a walking program. I think it's kind of on hiatus right now, but they usually bring it back, especially in the winter months when people they may not want to walk the mall, but they want to make sure that they can walk in a safe environment, and so that's what the Youth and Community Center brings to them.
Yeah, and you mentioned the school dovetailing with some of the rooms there, the multicultural room with the Family Engagement Center, but also It started with after-school programs, and now that's been expanded. Tell us a little bit, I mean, were these things thought of when you first did, or is this just the evolution of the building?
It's the evolution of the building. Our town manager, Mark Ells, is very youth-oriented, and there's always been a concern about what happens to children whose parents are working and they may not have some kind of program that they can go to after school. So it started out with the 6th, 7th school, the intermediate school, and then it expanded to Barnstable United Elementary School, so that we now have the 4 or 5. They are, we bring them into the facility with transportation, and the activities are really very engaging. The kids find social, school help. There's a physical activity part, so it's a really well-rounded thing that tries to match with the school day. They've also had some fun activities. Mark Bordley, our youth center manager, who's terrific, had actually played host to a Family Feud game with participants from the after-school program and the Barnstable Police Department, and it was a lot of fun. And just seeing the reactions of everybody with the answers to the questions was really great. Right. But the facility has enabled the town to bring a lot of international and national programs. We were the second facility to host the Theater on Ice program. I think we were maybe 18 months old at the time when we hosted that event, which is actually theater on ice. I mean, it was the elaborate costumes and the sets and everything else were pretty amazing. We've had a great partnership with the Yarmouth Ice Club, Cape Cod Skating Club, and the Yarmouth Ice Club and the Bourne Skating Club have also brought to us U.S. Figure Skating Association sectionals, regionals, qualifying activities. We had at one point, thanks to Patty Lloyd and the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce, she's amazing, and she's helped us put in bids for different programs. Like we had volleyball, college volleyball. Right. We had Division II hockey at one point. We had the Women's Hockey East for a number of years. That had a great draw. And the only thing is that they went back to where their games were held because that's where their fan base was, and they couldn't get all of their fan base here. But there's always a chance that we may get them back in the future. The Junior Celtics have come to the gymnasium for a couple of times. We had a boxing match with inside the
that's right, I remember that.
Gymnasium. The first Y Achievers program, which actually also participates out of the Youth and Community Center, they had their first banquet at the Youth and Community Center. They transformed the gym. People couldn't believe that the gym, because they had gotten special baffling and stuff like that, so that the sound was, tampered down and everything else. The Shepley Community Room is used for all different kinds of programs. We have, it's just, you walk in there and it's hard not to smile when you see everybody's, they're having fun for the most part. And one of the best things that ever happened was the town manager and the chief Sonnabend put Brian Morrison into the facility, and Brian is just one of the most caring officers. He's great. He not only works with the students, but he also works with the parents. Sometimes parents have issues that they don't know who that they can talk to, or if Brian sees something that's going on with their kids, he may give the parents a call and say, I think that you should be aware. And that's a tremendous, just heartwarming
The
thing.
whole resources of the facility, from the people to the activities, Festival of Museums. I mean, this particular event has grown over the years from, a handful of museums the first year to now a full-day event that has almost every museum out there here on the Cape.
And we had the World Series trophy, the latest World Series trophy here, which was also a big draw. So that was really tremendous. We had a quilt show, one year. The two rinks, one's on sand and one is on concrete. And the thought was that we could, if not needed, we would melt the second sheet of ice and then have activities on that sheet of ice. And in the early days, we did melt the ice, and we did have, you know, a couple of things. There was one year where the roller derby was skating there, and they had hoped to come back, but we weren't able to melt the ice because of the amount of need for that. So that was a really nice problem to have. And I have to say that the town council, the town manager have been extremely supportive of everything that we've done over there. And we have now DPW is maintaining the facility, which has just makes the facility shine. And we hear it all the time. When the United States Figure Skating Association president was in for the Cranberry Open recently, they all commented on how it didn't look 10 years old. They thought the facility was brand new.
Right.
And that's great.
Yeah, the whole refurb that they kind of did in the past year, and obviously they did some ice work as well, because we did a time lapse of that work, which was fascinating.
It has to happen every now and then with the repainting and everything else. So.
Right. So when you look back on the 10 years and the work that went into getting this building up and running, and the concessions and the compromises of all the boards and commissions and things that had to work to do this, what's the feeling?
It's all about the kids. It's all about the kids. That's what it's been about since day number one, and that's what we continue to do. And you know, as long as that remains the focus, that's what it makes everything all worth it. I think that, you know, there's literally hundreds of people that were involved in every aspect of this program, and it'd be hard for us to come up with a list to thank them all. But it's all about the kids, and I think that that's why the town council voted for the money. At the time, the town council president now, Jim Crocker, was actually on the town council at the time, and he asked a question: how many seats in the Kennedy rink? And the Kennedy rink at the original time wouldn't have been able to hold the audience for a Barnstable Falmouth hockey game. And so he's like, well, don't you think that it should?
Right.
You know, so they had to go back to the drawing board. It cost a little bit more money, and but the town council again voted to pass that. So it's a $24.7 million project, and you know, without people like our finance director, Mark Milne, who was you know, crunching numbers and everything else. We got support from the federal government in $1 million, $3.5 million from the state. The Hyannis Youth and Community Center Foundation raised 1.637 something, and the LaRusso Foundation had given us $1 million. So that, you know, it's just amazing, the support that we got, and the rest of it's been taxpayer money.
Right. How do families get involved with that facility?
Walk on in. You know, there's somebody that's usually behind the glass that can greet you. We have memberships. There are daily memberships. There are yearly memberships. It's $20 for someone to become a member, so that they can go in. They can.
That's $20 a year.
A year.
A year.
A year.
A year.
A year. And you know, you can go in. You can use the open gym. You can go on, use the youth center, which is where there's a bunch of different kinds of games and things of that nature. That we have a great vendor as our concessionaire with Casual Gourmet. One of the things that people do all the time is they do birthday parties in the Shepley room. And sometimes what they'll do is they'll do a birthday party in the Shepley room, and they'll get ice time so that you know, the entire group can go out and try that out. There's so many activities that are happening on the 14th for people to try out. There's some things outside, some things inside, but we hope that everyone will come on down and celebrate this great town asset that we have.
That's fantastic. It's for the kids.
It's for the kids.
Awesome.
It's all
Thank
about
you.
the kids.
Thank you so much, Lynn. If you build it, they will play. A world-class upgrade to the athletic fields at Barnstable High School. Here's an update on the progress from our sister station, Educational Channel 22, B2B.
My name is Dave Kanyuk, and I am the Director of Facilities for the Barnstable Public Schools. I'd like to welcome you to the site of the new Barnstable High School athletic facility, future home of Red Raiders Athletics. We began construction on this site with a groundbreaking on May 8th, of this year. Have an expected field completion date of November 11th, and we expect to have full use of the facility for spring sports in 2020. The field's configured with new dugouts, press box with a filming platform, restrooms, concession stand, and a patio. We expect to have parking for 100 cars. The stadium's seating capacity will seat 400 people and will include things like netting and a full multi-use scoreboard. To left field will be 338 feet, center field will be 388 feet, and right field will be 321 feet. When completed, the fans can expect a real stadium experience. You'll enter the fields above and you will actually look down onto the field just as you would experience at any major league ballpark. And we'll have full view of the fields from all around. There will be seating on the first base side and the third base side as well behind home plate. The viewing experience will be great. Again, the fields will be lit, so we'll be able to enjoy games at night. It will also be a multi-purpose field. We'll also be able to hold soccer games and field hockey games on this field as well. Phase 2 will include the remainder of the fields surrounding this ball field. That includes all the grass, the varsity softball field, and JV baseball field, and support fields behind. This will all be interconnected by paths, and we will have an athletic facility on this side, which will be very accessible from anywhere on the campus and easy to get from one field to another. Phase 3 will be on the other side of the street behind the tennis courts, and we'll do a similar improvement over there through the fields behind the intermediate school. Right here, right now we are excavating for the grandstands, and we're excavating down for the footer, foundation, and where the grandstands will be placed. So here at this site, you see we're beginning to form up for the batter's box and home plate. As I mentioned earlier, the fields will be synthetic turf, but the batter's box and home plate will have traditional clay infill so that the batters and catchers will have firm footing and the type of base that they like to be on when digging in for batting. Here on the third baseline, we plan on installing 2 bullpens and a batter's cage for practice. And then on the first baseline, there will be a bullpen as well. So we're looking forward to completion of this project, moving forward with the next 2 phases, and being able to provide a Division I state-of-the-art, first-class facility for the families and students at Barnstable Public Schools.
Summer intern Olivia Morrow brought us this heartwarming story of pop-up neighborhood libraries.
If you're a bit of a bookworm, you'll be happy to know that the neighborhood libraries have expanded. Now, on the corner of Highland and Chase Street, there are several new libraries you and your family can visit. These libraries belong to everyone in the community. There are books available for adults, kids, and children. You may take a book to read, and when you're finished, you can return it for a new book. Donations are always accepted and encouraged, so be a supporter and donate books for others to enjoy. Donations go under the seats of the reading benches. A prize box has been placed next to the libraries to show support of all the good readers. The Kindness Rocks project is just as important. If you see a painted rock you like, you may take it. If you see an unpainted rock, we ask that you pass on the kindness by designing your own and leaving it for the next lucky reader. Other neighborhood libraries are featured at Nirvana Coffee Shop and Craigsville Beach. This one was created by our very own town carpenter. The neighborhood libraries remind the community about the importance of reading and passing on knowledge as well as kindness.
Up next, things to do, places to go, and people to meet. Join us at the HYCC 10th birthday party this Saturday, September 14th from 10 to 3. Demos in the gym, game room fun, touch-a-truck, public skating, skate park jam, and more. And don't forget cake at 12:30 p.m. The event is free. Channel 18 will be there broadcasting all the fun live on Facebook. Comments, suggestions, accolades, connect with us on Facebook, email us, or send us an old-fashioned note by carrier pigeon. Channel 18 works for you. I'm Paula Hersey, and thank you for watching Barnstable Today.